Hello, class. Welcome back to part two of using dictionaries. This is part two of the video that I had started earlier. In the first video, we actually discussed what a dictionary was and how to build a dictionary from reading data from a data file. And now what we're going to do is we're going to finish the project. And just as a recap, in the project, what we're planning on doing, we're trying to associate two different types of data files. Oftentimes what happens is that you may query the internet and look for data, and you may find the data that you need, but in different files or in different locations. So you may have to actually create 2, 3, 4 X data files, and you can use dictionaries in Python to associate dictionaries together so that you can get the information, extract the information that you need. Now, keep in mind that the data files we're using in this particular project are very small. We had, I think, a total of 8 camera data sets that are available in each file. That's not typical. We're talking thousands and thousands of data records that you may find. And unfortunately, you don't always get what you want in terms of having everything in one specific file. The good news about the dictionary is that it provides an opportunity for you to keep unique information about individual entities in one location or dictionary. Recall that our reference to a dictionary was the old type dictionary, which was a bound book, and inside the dictionary there was one. Each word had its own reference, its own definition. So too is the dictionary in Python. You have unique keys, and each key is associated with a particular value. What we did in our project, what we were trying to do was, I'd like to have the ability to find the price of a particular camera that's in an inventory. And I was able to find a database that actually had the brand and model in one database. And then I found a database that had model and price. And by creating 2 separate dictionaries, like we had in what we started in part 1, I was able to, in part 1, we actually created a dictionary just to see how you can extract information from a data file. So we created a camera model dictionary from a camera model database. In part 2, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to take the same principles that we use to create the camera model dictionary and apply the same principles to creating the camera price dictionary. And then once we have those 2 dictionaries created, I'm going to show you how to create another function that will associate one dictionary with another so that we can extract the information and return ultimately the price. The information we want is the price of the camera model, the camera brand and model that we're trying to search for, back to function main. So I'll show you how to do that. So let's get started. I've taken the liberty of creating the second dictionary file. And if you'll notice that the 2 dictionary declarations, or the creation of those 2 functions are similar. In the create cam dictionary, we initialized a few variables, one of which was a dictionary. We opened the data file, and the data file that we were looking at was the camera model.csv, which contained the brand and the model of the cameras that we actually had in our inventory. Once we had the file open using a file object name, we read each line in the database, removed the new line character, split the 2 fields of data into the corresponding variables. Then we assigned the value to the key. And the example that we're using here, the model is our value and the brand is our key. So ultimately what we're looking for is to create a collection of keys by the manufacturer name of the camera, and the values, the corresponding models related to the individual manufacturer names. In our camera price database, the models are going to be our keys and the prices are going to be our values. So take a look at what we have in our second function, which is called create price dictionary. I basically did the same thing. I created a dictionary file. I actually initialized two variables, model and price. Now, these variables are local to this particular function. Just because we have a model and brand, or particularly in this case, the model variable here, this model variable is local to create CAM dictionary, and this model is local to create picture dictionary. They're completely separate values. They may have similar information coincidentally, but these are local variables, so they're not known. They don't have scope outside the function. In this case, I have a new object name called price object. This is a file object name associated with cameraprice.csv, which is right here. And once I open up the data file, I use my for loop to read each line of data, which is model and price. Since it's separated by a comma, I can use the split method to separate the individual pieces of data accordingly. Then once I have the information that I need, I can then start building my library because I'm using a loop. And what this is the price, which is the value, and model, which is the key, are going to be placed and appended into the dictionary. Now, once I get done with my loop, notice that I'm going to close the file that I just read. Here's my file object name. I'm using the close function, and then I'm going to return the price dictionary back to the calling function. So in both of these functions, I'm creating the function, returning the function, I'm creating the dictionary, and I'm returning the dictionary. I'm returning one dictionary. It's one entity. Recall that when we return something in a function in Python, we can return one entity, one item. A dictionary is considered an item, so we can return that without a problem. It has multiple values inside, but it's under the umbrella of an item, okay, an object. So in our next function, we're returning the price dictionary. And now I'm going to focus a little bit of attention right now on our main function. Now, in our main function, most of the code that we've been using up to this point is still present. I did delete some of the pieces that I really don't need any longer. In the previous code, I just basically had some syntax that was in there just to show you that once you pass the dictionary back from the function, you can do work with it. You can actually do some work. But in this particular case, what I want to do is I want to write a third function that is going to take three parameters, two dictionaries, and one piece of data that we're going to use to search one of the dictionaries in that function. Okay? So let me get some space going in here so we can start doing our definition for the new function. And the new function that we're going to develop is called evaluate data. And I'm just going to put a space here for right now because I want to just talk it out first before I start developing the code. I'm going to put a little extra space in here. So in our function main, we have three variables declared. One is my dictionary for the camera model. And honestly, I don't think we're really going to need that. Actually, we are. We're going to need that. So what I'm going to do is I also need to get another one in here, but let's just talk this out. I got some variables declared and initialized. Then I query the user for which model of camera we're trying to search for. Now, recall from the presentation that we did, we're asking the user for the brand that we're trying to get information on, all right? So once the brand is given, we can associate the model and the brand together from the one dictionary. Then we can pass that model to the camera price dictionary to find out if there's a corresponding model and then associate that. Now, in this case, the brand is going to be the key in our, when we query the camera model dictionary, the brand will be the key, the model will be the value. When we start associating and searching the camera price dictionary, the model will now take on the key and the price will be the value. All right, so we have to have a way to use the dictionaries, extract information from one, pass that data that was pulled to the other dictionary, so we can see if we have a match. So that's the basic premise of the solution for the the remaining function, and also for dealing with function main. So we're really not going to do much work in function main other than call the function that's going to do all the work. So what we're going to do is we're going to first create the dictionary. So we're going to say camera model, the variable associated camera model is equal to, I think the function that we call was create cam dictionary. So create, actually, I can actually double click. Once I start writing create, it comes up with a couple. I don't know if you've seen that before. So I'm just going to call that function because I don't have to pass any parameters to it. Then I'm going to create a new dictionary called camera price equals create price dictionary, because it's already been developed. That's the beauty of actually developing your functions prior to using them in functions. Because what you can do is you can start typing the name, and Python and PyCharm understands that that function actually exists already. Now, since I actually have, I declared a dictionary variable for the model, I'm going to go ahead and create a dictionary variable for the price. Make sure it matches. And we have an empty dictionary. And so now we're okay. We've declared, and now we can use. So what we need to do is, as a matter of fact, the order really doesn't matter. I'm asking for the brand, I'm asking for a dictionary, and I'm asking for a dictionary to be created. Okay, so now we're ready to work with our next function. But I'm going to actually start writing what we're going to do here. And that is, I'm going to do something which I'll explain what we're going to do when ultimately what I'm going to try to get back here is 3 pieces of information. I want to print out the camera brand, Nikon, model D810. If this works, it should output the price of $29.99. If I put in a brand of Leica, the dictionary should return S2. S2 is associated with 4,000. So the output should be the camera brand Leica, model S2, costs 4,000. Okay? Now, these 3 pieces of information, if you'll notice, I'm using list nomenclature, which means I'm going to be returning a list back to function main, because what's nice about the list is you can actually put multiple values inside the list and pass the list back from the function as a single entity. We're no longer bound to single variables. We could use the list. This is what we've been building to. You can now return a list that has multiple values. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put a variable. I'm going to declare a list variable. I'm going to call it camera specifications, and I'm simply going to just make it as an empty list. Recall from the previous lectures, the list has the square brackets as its symbology, and the dictionary has the curly brace. So in our function main, I'm going to return a list. So I'm going to have camera specifications equal to, and now I'm going to write the function that I'm going to call to pass the 2 dictionaries and the brand information that the function evaluate data is going to use to find out, first, if we have a brand called, in one example, Nikon. If there is a Nikon, it's going to return the model, pass that model to the camera price dictionary to find out if the model exists. It will. We'll get the price, and then pass those 3 pieces of information, brand, model, and price, back to function main as a list. Okay, So let's get to it. I'm going to call evaluate data, and now I have to pass three parameters. The parameters are camera model. This is the dictionary name for the camera model. The dictionary name for the price. And we're going to send into the function brand. Now, before I start moving away, make sure you understand what I'm doing here. I'm calling a function called evaluate data, which I'm about to write. Inside the parameter list, in order for me to do my work up here in my evaluate data function, I need three pieces of data. The dictionary that holds the camera model, the dictionary that holds the camera price, and the brand of camera that the user wants to query into those dictionaries. Those are the three parameters. When this works, the information is going to be returning is the brand, the model, and the price of the camera that I'm searching for. And it's going to return it as a list to the list in function main called camera specifications. So let's go up into the function and take a look at the parameters that we need to talk about. Now, recall in previous lectures when I've spoken to you about developing custom functions, one of the things that I had advised against is using the same variable names between parameters and parameters and attributes. And the reason for that is because they really are not the same variable. So one of the things that's recommended that you do is you give it a unique name. So what I did was in my function, I'm going to call it model. I'm going to give it a separate name for the model dictionary. And I'm going to have a name for the price dictionary. And I'm going to have a separate variable for the camera brand. Now, what this is going to do is when Python executes this function, it's calling this function. On the function call, it's going to take this dictionary under the name camera mode DICT and pass it to the dictionary called model DICT. It'll pass camera price DICT, that dictionary, to price DICT, and pass the brand, the local variable brand, to a new variable up in this function, the evaluate data function called camera brand. Okay. Now I have my variables that I'm going to be using up in this particular function called evaluate data. So I'm going to declare a variable called model, initialize it to null. And I'm going to, since I'm going to be creating a list, I need to create a list variables, which if you take a look at the list variable in function main, it's called camera specifications. I'm trying to create a protocol of truncating the variable names. It's pretty self-explanatory. Camera model dictionary, camera price dictionary, price dictionary. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm just trying to come up with something unique, but something that's relatable so it's understandable. So instead of calling it camera specifications, I'm calling it camera specs in function evaluate data is equal to, I have to create a variable. So this is going to be wrong nomenclature, list. So we have an empty list. Okay, here we go. First thing that we're going to do is we're passing camera brand. Now, if you recall, camera brand, for example, let's just focus on this one line, is Nikon. So what we're going to be doing is we're technically going to be passing into function evaluate data the camera brand Nikon. Now, what we want to do is we want to see if the camera brand Nikon exists as a key in the model dictionary. And if it does, we want it to return what? We want it to return we're taking the brand, and if we pass the brand to the dictionary, it should return the model. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our syntax. So model is equal to, this is the dictionary name. Recall we use the get method and camera brand. Okay, so really quickly to make sure that I didn't confuse you. In our function main, we're passing three parameters. We have our camera model dictionary, our camera price dictionary, and the camera brand. The camera brand is Nikon for the example that we're talking about. That brand is being transferred to the variable camera brand. The pricing dictionary is being passed to price dictionary, and the camera model dictionary is being passed to model dictionary. Once we get into the function, we're going to see if the camera brand exists inside the dictionary, the model dictionary, by using the get model, the get method. If the brand Nikon exists, it's the syntax will return the model associated with Nikon, which is the DA10, and it returns it to and passes it to the variable model. Okay, now once we have a model in place, so in the case of the Nikon, it will be the DA10, we're going to have now we want to generate the price, which is equal to price dictionary dot get model. So we need another variable up here, price that's equal to 0. Now the pricing we want to be as an integer. So we can put a typecast operator in front of syntax to search for the value or search for the model. Because if this model exists, in the case of the Nikon camera, the DA10, we're passing DA10 into the dictionary for price. And notice that the DA10 does exist inside that data file, so it should come back as $29.99. Now, when it first comes from the data file as a string, we're going to typecast it as an integer, so it's going to turn it into an integer before it passes it to the variable price. Okay? We're almost there. Don't give up. Don't let go. So, here we go. Once we have that information, we now have to build the list. Now, there's a tendency to do something like this. Camera specs, and then bracket 0 bracket. I mean, that's the 0th element, and then the first element, and the second element. So that's not right, because we have to use, in order to add values to the list, we have to use the append method. Okay, and what we do is we put the variable name for the list, which is camera specs, use the append method, and we're going to add the three pieces that we need. And the three pieces are camera brand, first piece, the 0 index. The next piece is camera specs, append, and we want to put model. And then we have camera specs, append, and price. I'm doing that. My keyboard is a little non-standard, so I have to move it to the right to make sure I have the closed parentheses. Okay, there you have it. I have my list built. I only have three parameters inside the list: the brand, the model, and the price. It's exactly what I'm looking for. And all I have left to do now is what? Can you see what I have to do? I did all the work that I needed, and I don't have to return any type of dictionary or anything. I just have to return one entity. That's all we can return. We're going to return the list that has all my camera information. So camera specs. Okay. And that's basically it, because I already had that my camera specifications is a list. The camera specifications is going to receive the list called camera specs in the function evaluate data. It's going to pass it off to camera specifications, which contains three parameters. Now, once I return that list, I can now reference it by index. My zero index, which is the first time I try to append data, is my camera brand. Index 1, which is the second element inside the list, is my model. And the second index, so the 0, 1, the index number 2, which is the third element inside the list, is going to be my price. So I reference it accordingly. So I use a print function. The camera brand and camera specification sub 0 should be the brand. The model should be sub 1, and the pricing should be sub 2. So let's see if this works. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to go into my function so you can see this actually working. So I actually put a breakpoint inside of evaluate data, and I want to see if the information that I need is coming back correctly. And this is a great idea to do when you're doing the development for the first time, especially with functions that are actually passing parameters in. You want to make sure that the information is correct. So what I want to do is run this in debug, and let's see if it works. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So run debug, and this is demo 2. And here we go. So the function's going to run completely through until it gets to the first breakpoint, which is at line 46 of code inside our function evaluate data. So I'm going to write in data that I know works. So I'm going to type in Nikon. Now, Nikon is a brand that's currently in my camera model database. So we know it exists. Make sure you spell it right the first time. You don't need to be adding errors in where you don't have to. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to go here, my Nikon, and I'm going to press enter. Now, I'm actually inside the evaluate data function. Now, it looks a little scary, but it's really not. This line of information right here tells you exactly what's going on. It's telling you that the model dictionary contains all of this information, which is exactly what it's supposed to. It also will then tell you that it's got additional information, which is going to be the pricing information. So if you take a look in this, which is a little bit easier to see, if you take a look at what was transferred into the function, model dictionary has all of the models that were located in the data file. It worked. It worked in part 1 of this exercise. We just mimicked that for the pricing information. In the pricing information, we have the model and the price. So we have D810, $29.99. EOS 1D, $54.99. Let's take a look and see if that happened. D810, $29.99. EOS 1D, $54.99. So all that information is there. Now, what I'm going to do is I also passed in the camera brand. Now, taking a look at the variables that exist inside the function now, camera brand is holding the brand Nikon, which is exactly what I asked it to pass in. Now I have a valid name. I'm going to pass that camera brand. We're going to search for it in the model dictionary using the get method. If it does exist, which it will, it'll return the model associated with Nikon. So Nikon will be passed in as a key. And if Nikon exists, you'll see it right there. I just hovered over model dictionary, the variable, and you'll see the very, very first field says Nikon. What should return is D810. So let me just single step in, and there it is. Model now is holding the string D810 because there was a match. It found it. Now, it's going to now take model D810 and pass and search for it in the price dictionary. Now, I'm hovering over price dictionary. This is kind of a neat thing in PyCharm. When you hover over a variable that is currently holding data, which in this case it is because I'm running in debug, this program is actually doing something. Notice the D810 is the first field. It's going to associate, it's going to find that key and return the value $29.99. But it's also going to typecast it as an integer. So when you look in the variable list, which is right down here in the variable section, notice when in debug, we have to go between console and debugger. In the variables area, when I single step in, the variable price, which is currently holding 0 right now, once I execute it, I'm willing to bet you it's going to have an integer with a value of $29.99. Let's see if it works. And there it is. Integer, $29.99. I've got everything that I need to do my work in the main function. The only thing that I need to do is to create the one entity that's going to hold all my pieces. And in this case, I decided that I was going to put that information into a list. It's a wonderful tool that you can use to put multiple pieces, multiple values into a single entity, in this case a list, and then pass that list back to the calling routine. So here we go. The camera specs list is currently empty because all I did was initialize it at the beginning of the evaluate data function. I'm going to single step through, and you can watch it. You'll notice that this little symbology here will begin to grow with each append of a particular parameter. So we have 1, 2, 3. Here are my 3 pieces. This is index 0, index 1, index 2. Brand, model, price. Now, return the camera specs. Now, anytime you see a return with a parameter to return, there better be a variable to accept it, or else it's not going to work. Okay, so in this case, my list variable in function main is called computer specifications. Since it is a list and I'm returning a list, what Python will do is it'll take all the values in this list and pass them to the associated indices of camera specifications. So let me go ahead and single step. And now if this worked, camera specifications should have 3 values in it. Let's see what it looks like. I haven't executed it yet, so let me go ahead and execute it. And we have camera specifications. Index 0 is Nikon, index 1 is DA10, index 2 is $29.99. And the way that you reference any values inside of a list is by index. So notice that if I hover over this particular variable, computer specification 0, if I hold it over the 0, let me go ahead and try to do this. It's only showing the actual, the full variable. But you'll notice that the 0 index is Nikon, the 1 index is DA10, and the 2 index is $29.99. So when we output this to the screen, it'll take those individual pieces, place them into the function, and then output it to the screen. So let me go to the console, and let's see if this works. Single step, there we go. The camera brand Nikon, model DA10, costs $29.99. I'm going to go ahead and stop this, and I'm going to run it full because I know it's working. Let's try Leica. And let's take a look and make sure this data is accurate. I go to my camera model database, and the Leica is the S2, and there it is, Leica model S2. And my camera price, the S2 is $4,000, and there it is. Okay, don't ask me how I got the dollar sign. You know how to do that. The dollar sign is just inside the string before I close it off and actually place that variable into the function. Okay, let me go ahead and run it again. Let's try to do the, I think it's the Photron. It's the Photron. The Photron. And if I do the Photron, yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is $47,200. That particular camera is a high-speed camera. That camera is capable of taking pictures at 5,000 frames per second. To get that kind of speed, it costs a lot of money. So yeah, that's pretty pricey. Let's run it one more time. Let's see if we can put an Olympus. Let's see what I have here. Let's do a Sony. Let's see what I get. Sony, and that's the Alpha A7. Sony Alpha A7 with the price of $15.99. That's exactly what I got. So it's working. So I'm going to shut off the output screen. Let me just close this output tab so I can see the source code a little bit easier. I'll shut off this breakpoint. So what I've done, my solution includes a collection of 1, 2, 3, 4 functions. In my collection of functions, I have a function that creates a dictionary to hold camera information, and that camera information is to relate the brand and model of the cameras in inventory. Then I created a dictionary for price, so create price dictionary. That associated model with price. If you take a look at my presentation, I wanted a database to go from brand to model, and then I wanted to go from model to price. In my camera model dictionary, my brand was my key, the model was my value. In my camera price dictionary, my model was my key, and my price was my value. These are the two files that exist that were provided. And ultimately what I was trying to do is I was trying to associate brand with price. And that's how I got those databases. So going back to the Python code, these are my two functions, create cam dictionary and create price dictionary. Now what I'm going to do is I actually created a new, this is my analysis function, my custom function called evaluate data. What I needed to do my work in evaluate data was 2 dictionaries and 1 piece of information from the user, which is the camera brand. So what I did was I passed those 2 dictionaries after creating them in function main, and that's at lines 66 and 67. These 2 lines of code actually create the dictionaries. Once I have the dictionaries, I pass them in as parameters, and they're received in evaluate data. I use them using the get method. I pass the camera brand to the model dictionary to search. The camera brand is going to be used as a key search. And if the key is found, what Python will do is it'll return the model back as a return value. That's why you see it written this way, model equals. That means that this particular syntax is going to return the value associated with the key from camera brand. Then once I have a model, I use that as the key into the pricing dictionary. And if the model exists, the price is returned. Then the last thing that before I get out of the function is I create a new list. I build the list, in essence, using the append method by the 3 pieces of information that I need in my function main are camera brand. I technically have camera brand already, but I just wanted to make it as a single entity. So I have camera brand, model, and price. I put that into a list that I had declared at the beginning of the function. Once I have the list created, I return it back as a return. It's a single entity, a list. And once I pass it back, it's passed back to a companion list in function main called computer specifications. Those 3 values inside that list can now be used by index reference. Specifically, the camera brand is at index 0, the camera model is at index 1, and the price is at index 2. I can use them in my output statement, and then my program is done. So there you have it. Just using different dictionaries. In the case that I'm using here, I only had data available for brand and model in one data file, and then I had only information for model and price in another data file. I was able to create dictionaries because dictionaries are wonderful for keeping track of unique information. The unique keys are associated with specific values, great to query and to search. Once I go into once I have those dictionaries created, I'm able to use them without any problem. So there you have it, an actual application using dictionaries, how you can use those dictionaries to query data. In programming assignment number 4, you'll have access to 2 data files, and you might want to repeat this module or this video to see how you can apply what I've shown you here. You may not have to use everything that I have here, but certainly provide some good practical information about how to use dictionaries and import data from files. With that, I wish you the best. Thanks for watching.